What if I told you that one of the most powerful luxury brands in the world, a symbol of wealth, status, and engineering perfection, was born from struggle, rejection, and relentless obsession? This is not just the story of a car company. This is the story of a boy who refused to accept his circumstances, who saw the future before anyone else, and who built something so revolutionary that it would change the way humanity moves forever. This is the story behind Mercedes-Benz and the man who started it all, Karl Benz. Stay with me, because this journey from poverty to power is not what you expect. Picture a young boy growing up in the mid-1800s. No smartphones, no cars, no highways, just horses, steam engines, and a world that believed progress had already peaked. That boy's name was Karl. His father was a locomotive driver, someone who operated steam-powered trains, which at the time were considered cutting-edge technology. To Karl, machines weren't just tools, they were magic. They moved without muscles. They carried people faster than horses ever could. But life doesn't always give you time to dream. When Karl was just 2 years old, tragedy struck. His father died in a railway accident. Just like that, the family lost its only source of income. Imagine being a child with big dreams, but no money, no support system, and a world that doesn't believe in you. His mother, however, refused to let that be the end of his story. She saw something in him. Even in poverty, she made a bold decision. She invested everything she had into Karl's education. She believed that knowledge was the only way out, and that decision would change history. By the age of 15, Karl Benz was already studying engineering at university. Let that sink in. 15. While most teenagers today are still figuring out what they want to do, he was already building the foundation for a revolution. But here's the truth no one talks about. Being talented doesn't mean life becomes easy. Karl struggled, financially, emotionally, mentally. He had ideas, big ones. He wanted to build a machine that could move on its own, without horses, a self-propelled vehicle. Sounds normal today, right? Back then, people thought it was insane. Investors rejected him. Banks refused him. People laughed at him. They said, why would anyone need a horseless carriage? But Karl didn't stop. He couldn't stop, because when you see the future clearly, going back to the past becomes impossible. He kept experimenting, failing, rebuilding. He started businesses and watched them collapse, not once, not twice, multiple times. At one point, his financial situation became so bad that his wife had to pawn her own belongings just to keep them alive. Yes, behind every great success story are sacrifices no one sees. And this is where another hero enters the story, his wife, Bertha. She wasn't just supportive, she was fearless. While Karl was stuck in doubt and fear of public failure, Bertha made a decision that would change everything. Without telling him, she took his experimental vehicle, his motor wagon, and went on the first long-distance drive in history. Think about that moment. No roads designed for cars, no gas stations, no safety systems. Just a woman, a machine, and pure courage. She drove over 100 kilometers. Along the way, she had to invent solutions on the spot, fixing mechanical issues, creating the first brake lining, even figuring out fuel supply. What she did wasn't just a drive, it was proof. Proof that Karl's invention worked. Proof that the world was about to change. And suddenly, people started paying attention. That one journey turned doubt into belief. Soon, Karl Benz officially patented his invention, the first true automobile. History was made. But the story doesn't end there, because success attracts competition. Around the same time, another brilliant mind was working on similar ideas, Gottlieb Daimler. He had his own vision of the automobile, his own engine, his own ambition. And instead of destroying each other, their legacies would eventually merge, creating what we now know as Mercedes-Benz. But before we get there, let's talk about the transformation, from a struggling inventor to a global pioneer. Karl Benz didn't just create a product,
He created an industry. He turned imagination into reality, and slowly the world began to adopt his vision. Cars started appearing on roads, cities began to change, distances became shorter, opportunities became bigger, and what was once laughed at became essential. But here's the most powerful part of this story. Karl Benz never started with power. He started with nothing. No money, no connections, no guarantee of success, just an idea and the courage to pursue it. Now think about today. We live in a world full of opportunities, technology, resources.
Knowledge at our fingertips. And yet, so many people give up before they even begin. Karl failed for years before he succeeded. Years. Not days, not weeks, years. So the real question is, are you willing to stay committed that long? Because that's what greatness demands. As Mercedes-Benz grew, it became more than a car company. It became a symbol. Luxury, innovation, precision, status. From the three-pointed star logo representing dominance over land, sea, and air, to engineering that pushed boundaries, the brand evolved into something legendary. But behind every luxury car, there's a story of struggle. Behind every symbol of success, there's a journey of pain. And that's what most people forget. They see the result. They don't see the process. Let's pause for a second. Imagine if Karl Benz had quit after his first failure, or his second, or his third. There would be no Mercedes-Benz, no modern automobile industry as we know it, no revolution in transportation. One decision to give up could have erased everything. And that's the reality for all of us. Every dream you have, every idea in your mind, it's one decision away from disappearing, or one decision away from changing your life forever. Karl chose persistence, and persistence chose him back. Now, as the company expanded, Mercedes-Benz didn't just follow trends, they created them. Safety innovations, performance engineering, luxury standards. They didn't ask, what does the market want? They asked, what should the future look like? That mindset is what separates leaders from followers. And it all started with a boy who refused to stay limited by his circumstances. A boy who lost his father, who faced financial collapse, who was rejected by society, but who never gave up. This is more than history. This is a blueprint for anyone who feels stuck, for anyone who thinks they don't have enough, for anyone who believes success is only for the privileged. It's not. Success belongs to those who endure, to those who keep going when it's uncomfortable, to those who believe even when no one else does. And if there's one thing you should take from this story, it's this. Your current situation does not define your final destination. Karl Benz started with poverty, but he built power. Not overnight, not easily, but inevitably, because he refused to quit. So the next time you face rejection, the next time things don't go your way, the next time you feel like giving up, remember this story. Remember that every great empire, every powerful brand, every success story was once just an idea in someone's mind, and that someone chose to believe in it, just like Karl Benz did. If this story inspired you, then you already know what to do, because the next chapter might be yours. But success, as powerful as it looks from the outside, is never a straight line. Because just when it feels like everything is finally working, life tests you again. After Karl Benz introduced his automobile to the world, you might think everything changed overnight, that investors rushed in, that customers lined up, that money finally started flowing. But that's not how real success works. At first, almost no one bought his invention. People were curious, yes, but curiosity doesn't pay the bills. Fear held them back. They didn't trust the machine. It was loud, unfamiliar, unpredictable. Imagine seeing a car for the first time in a world full of horses. It must have looked strange, even dangerous. So once again, Karl found himself in a familiar place, struggling. But here's what made him different. He didn't just build a product, he built belief.
and belief takes time. The turning point didn't come from marketing campaigns or big investors. It came from proof, real-world proof. Bertha's historic journey had already sparked attention, but now people needed to see consistency. They needed to see reliability. They needed to trust. So Karl improved the design again and again and again. Every failure became feedback. Every problem became a lesson. And slowly, the machine started evolving into something practical, something usable, something valuable. And then something incredible happened. People started buying. Not in massive numbers at first, but enough to prove one thing. This idea was real. This was no longer an experiment. It was a revolution in motion. And as more people adopted automobiles, the world itself began to shift. Cities started adapting. Roads improved, industries formed, jobs were created, all because one man refused to accept the limits of his time. But success attracts attention, and attention attracts competition. Soon more inventors and engineers began entering the space, some inspired by Karl, others determined to beat him. Among them was another visionary mind, Gottlieb Daimler. Unlike Karl, Daimler focused on speed, performance, and compact engines. He had a different approach, a different philosophy, but the same ultimate goal, to redefine transportation. Now here's where the story becomes even more powerful, because instead of one man's success, this becomes a story of parallel genius. Two pioneers, two visions, two journeys moving towards the same future. At first, they didn't collaborate. They built separately, competed indirectly, pushed innovation forward in their own ways, and that competition accelerated progress.
This is something most people misunderstand. Competition is not the enemy of success. It's the catalyst. It forces you to improve, to adapt, to evolve. And that's exactly what happened. Both Karl Benz and Gottlieb Daimler kept refining their technologies. Engines became stronger, vehicles became faster, designs became more advanced, and the automobile industry started taking shape. But even then, challenges didn't disappear. Economic instability, technical limitations, public skepticism, everything was still uncertain. There were moments when it all could have collapsed again, but persistence once again became the difference. Eventually, something historic happened. The companies founded by these two pioneers, Benz and C, and Daimler Motorengesellschaft, came together. Not out of convenience, but out of necessity. The world was changing fast, and survival required unity. In 1926, they merged, and from that merger, a legend was officially born, Mercedes-Benz. But the name itself carries a story most people don't know. Mercedes wasn't just a random choice. It was the name of a young girl, Mercedes Jelinek, the daughter of a businessman who believed deeply in Daimler's cars. He marketed them aggressively, sold them passionately, and demanded excellence. So much so that the name Mercedes became associated with performance, quality, and prestige. When the companies merged, that name stayed, and combined with Benz, it became one of the most iconic brands in history. Now think about that for a second. A boy who once struggled to survive is now part of a brand known worldwide, driven by presidents, celebrities, leaders, a symbol of power, luxury, success. But here's the deeper truth. The brand didn't become powerful because it chased money. It became powerful because it chased excellence. From the beginning, Mercedes-Benz focused on engineering perfection. They didn't cut corners. They didn't rush innovation. They built with purpose. And that's why, even today, the brand stands for something more. It stands for trust, for precision, for legacy. Now let's zoom out, because this story isn't just about cars. It's about transformation. Karl Benz didn't just change his life. He changed the world. He redefined how people move, how cities grow,
how economies expand, and all of that started with a single idea, a single belief, a single decision not to quit. So let me ask you something. What idea are you holding on to right now? What dream have you been delaying? What fear is stopping you? Because if there's one thing this story proves, it's that the biggest breakthroughs don't come from comfort. They come from struggle, from doubt, from moments where quitting feels easier than continuing. And yet, continuing is what creates greatness. Karl Benz didn't have guarantees. He had conviction. And conviction is more powerful than certainty, because certainty waits for proof. Conviction creates it. Now imagine if you applied that mindset to your own life. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, you create it. Instead of fearing failure, you use it. Instead of doubting yourself, you trust your vision. That's the difference between those who dream and those who build. As Mercedes-Benz continued to grow, it didn't just keep up with the future, it shaped it. They introduced innovations that would become industry standards, safety features, performance benchmarks, luxury experiences. And over time, they built not just cars, but a legacy that continues even today. But no matter how big the brand became, its foundation never changed. Innovation, persistence, courage. The same values that carried a young boy through poverty now carried a global empire forward. And that's what makes this story timeless. Because it's not about a specific era, it's about a mindset, a way of thinking, a way of living, a way of building something that lasts. So as we come closer to the end of this journey, let's bring it back to you. Because stories like this are not meant to be watched and forgotten. They're meant to be felt, to be applied, to be lived. Karl Benz showed us what's possible. But the question is, what will you do with that possibility? Will you stay where you are, or will you take that first step? Because every great story starts exactly the same way, with someone deciding, this is not where my story ends. And maybe, just maybe, that someone is you. If this story made you think even for a moment, then don't let that moment pass, because inspiration is powerful, but action is life-changing. And who knows, years from now, your story might be the one inspiring millions. This is Brand Story Lab, where stories aren't just told, they're transformed into lessons. And this one started with poverty and ended with power. And yet, even after all of that, even after the invention, the struggle, the breakthrough, and the birth of Mercedes-Benz, the story still doesn't end. Because real legacy isn't built in a single moment, it's tested over time. As the automobile industry expanded, the world entered a new era, an era of speed, industrial power, and global competition. New companies emerged, new technologies appeared, and suddenly, the same innovation that once made Karl Benz a pioneer became the new standard. That's the thing about success. What makes you special today becomes expected tomorrow. And if you stop evolving, you disappear. Mercedes-Benz understood this. They didn't just rely on their past, they kept pushing forward. Through wars, economic crises, and rapid technological shifts, the company faced moments that could have destroyed everything. Factories were damaged, markets collapsed, uncertainty returned. It was almost like history repeating itself. The same struggle Karl Benz once faced, now faced by the empire he helped create. But this time, something was different. The foundation was stronger. The mindset was embedded. The culture of resilience was already built. So instead of collapsing, they adapted, rebuilt, reinvented, and came back stronger. This is something most people overlook. Success is not about avoiding challenges, it's about surviving them again and again. Because no matter how big you become, life will test you. The question is, are you built to last? Mercedes-Benz proved that they were. They introduced innovations that didn't just improve cars, they changed the entire industry. Think about safety. At a time when speed was the focus, Mercedes-Benz asked a different question. How do we protect people? They developed some of the earliest safety technologies: crumple zones, airbags, anti-lock braking systems. Features we now take for granted were once revolutionary ideas. And once again, it all came down to mindset. While others chased what was popular, Mercedes-Benz focused on what mattered. That's what separates leaders from followers. Leaders don't react, they anticipate. They build for the future, not just the present. And that philosophy didn't just shape their products, it shaped their identity. Over time, Mercedes-Benz became more than a car brand. It became a symbol, a statement. When someone drives a Mercedes, it's not just about transportation, it's about achievement, about reaching a level where quality, comfort, and performance matter. But here's the deeper layer. That symbol of success was built on years of invisible struggle. And that's where most people get it wrong.
They want the symbol without the story. They want the result without the process. They want the luxury without the sacrifice. But that's not how it works. Every powerful brand, every successful person, every great achievement has a story behind it that most people never see. Late nights, failures, doubts, moments where everything feels like it's falling apart. Karl Benz lived through all of that, and so did the company that carried his name. Now let's bring this back to reality, because this isn't just history, this is a mirror, a reflection of what's possible. We live in a world where innovation is faster than ever, where ideas can turn into businesses overnight, where opportunities exist everywhere. But there's one thing that hasn't changed. Success still requires persistence, still requires belief, still requires the willingness to keep going, even when it's hard. So ask yourself, are you building something that can last, or are you just chasing short-term wins? Because Mercedes-Benz didn't become legendary by thinking small. They thought decades ahead. They built with purpose. They focused on excellence. And most importantly, they never forgot where they came from. From a young boy with nothing to a global icon, that journey is the heart of this story, and it carries a lesson that goes far beyond business. It's about identity, about who you choose to become. Karl Benz could have accepted his circumstances. He could have lived a normal life. He could have played it safe, but he didn't. He chose risk. He chose uncertainty. He chose to believe in something that didn't yet exist, and that choice changed everything. Now imagine if you made that same choice, not necessarily to build a car, but to build something meaningful, something impactful, something that reflects your vision. Because at the end of the day, that's what legacy is. It's not about what you have, it's about what you create, what you leave behind, what continues even after you're gone. Mercedes-Benz is more than a company. It's proof that one idea, one vision, one person can create something that outlives them. And that's the most powerful kind of success. So as this story comes full circle, let's go back to where it all began. A boy, a dream, a world that didn't believe in him, and a decision to keep going anyway. That decision turned poverty into power, turned doubt into innovation, turned an idea into an empire. And now, the only question left is, what will your story become? Because somewhere, right now, there's an idea in your mind, a vision waiting to be built, a future waiting to be created. And just like Karl Benz, you have a choice: to ignore it or to pursue it, to stay where you are or to move forward, to play it safe or to take the risk. Because every great story starts with a decision, and every powerful ending begins with a moment just like this.
So don't wait, don't doubt, don't hold back, because the next great story might already be inside you. And one day, someone might be watching a video just like this, learning from your journey, being inspired by your struggles, and realizing that if you could do it, so can they. This is Brand Story Lab, and this wasn't just a story about Mercedes-Benz. This was a story about what's possible when persistence meets vision. And now, it's your turn.